innovation work, we work with complex systems. It's part of our job. And so when we are telling stories about innovation, typically they fall into one of three categories. The first category is what's referred to as the shine the light story. The second is become the glue. And the third is a weave the web type of story. Now let's talk about weave the web types of narratives. You would lean into this type of narrative after you feel that people are generally bought into a broader vision for where to go. Yet, because we're dealing with transformational change, and change requires people that actually change, oftentimes what that means is that they have to change certain narratives that they have about their business, or maybe their roles within the business, to really enable that change. And so that could be something such as identity. Who are we as a company? It could also be a range of limiting beliefs around things that have worked in the past versus those things that maybe haven't worked in the past. Regardless of what it is, people have a pathway in their brain that basically says, we can do this and we can't do that. And sometimes you have to help them to literally create a new pathway. You have to carve a new path through the forest, if you will, to basically say, no, we can go over here. And basically allowing them to bring more ease and flow back into their execution process. So what might a weave the web type of narrative look like in action? We recently worked with an organization that through some discovery work, we learned that there was a huge potential for basically a more or less forgotten aspect of their business. But with the way that their particular industry had grown and changed, the potential for that particular line of business was huge in the future. But at that moment in time, that particular organization, the way that they were sort of nurturing that line of their business is that the same employees who worked on their cash cow aspects of their business were the ones who were also supposed to be dedicating time to this other part of their business when they found time. And so through the process of our innovation initiative, we said, look, you're sitting on a golden nugget. You've got huge potential to bring this into a whole new aspect of your business. But in order to do that, you've got to invest really purposefully and intentionally in that process. And what that looks like is basically staffing a whole other team dedicated towards this line of your business. Now, you can imagine this required a fair amount of narrative to be rewritten internally within the organization, because like most organizations, they were like, how do we actually staff this? Like, how do we put enough people behind this that doesn't just sort of blow up our payroll in the process? And so there was a lot of rewriting of the narrative that had to happen, and that was very much a collaborative process. It wasn't something that happened instantaneously, or one story was told and then everything was all set, but it was rather a story that was organically woven between teams, between the executive team, between our team, until we all felt that there is a way to make this happen, to get past that limiting belief, to really enable the vision that came forward. So my hope is that you've been inspired by this video and will ask yourself, how can I be more intentional and strategic with my future innovation storytelling? I invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to have deeper conversation about this with my followers. Until then, take care.